Have you ever lain awake at night, tangled in your sheets, your brain bouncing from taxes to tomorrow's to-do list, and wondered, what if I'd been born in ancient Rome? Not as Caesar, not as Cleopatra's secret pen pal, but as a humble peasant, blissfully free of emails and painfully full of fleas. Well, tonight, dear dreamer, your wish comes true. For the next while, you will step into the scuffed sandals of an everyday villager, living in the heart of an empire so vast, it made modern superpowers look like toddlers squabbling over toy swords. But fear not, you won't be waging wars or reciting epic speeches to the Senate. You'll be tending goats that ignore you, chasing chickens that mock you, and trying to convince your brother to lift a hoe for once in his life, instead of inventing new excuses. So take a slow, deep breath. Forget your noisy city street, your blinking notifications, your neighbour's off-key karaoke. Tonight, your only worry is whether the rooster wakes you too early, or whether the village gossip leaks your embarrassing story about losing to a donkey in a staring contest. Again. Close your eyes, let the hum of modern life fade away, and drift with me into the warm, dusty cradle of ancient Rome, where ordinary folk like you lived, loved, and complained about back pain, just like you do now. Our story begins not in the marble heart of Rome, where senators strut about in fancy togas debating politics while being fanned by slaves, but far from that pomp and drama, deep in the rolling hills of the Italian countryside. It's the early 1st century AD. Emperor Tiberius sits on the throne, mostly hiding away on the island of Capri, suspicious of everyone and everything, which, to be fair, was probably wise considering how often Roman leaders ended up stabbed in alleys or poisoned at banquets. But none of that matters to you, because you, dear peasant, have far more pressing concerns. Will your thatched roof survive the next rainstorm? Who keeps stealing your eggs? Will your neighbour return your only decent pot? Or will you have to declare a village-wide feud? You live in a squat little hut, built with local stone, mud, and prayers to household gods that the walls won't collapse during the night. The floor is hard-packed earth, warm in summer, bone-bitingly cold in winter, and a paradise for fleas who consider your ankles a free, all-you-can-eat buffet. Inside, your possessions are few but cherished. A rough wooden table, some clay bowls, a battered oil lamp, and a straw mattress so lumpy it could double as a medieval massage therapist. Herbs dangle from the rafters, rosemary, sage, and thyme, because ancient Roman peasants, as poor as they were, still liked their stew tasty and their pests slightly discouraged. Outside, the dawn mist creeps over terraced fields of barley and rows of ancient olive trees. Chickens cluck indignantly at your neighbour's mangy dog, who half-heartedly guards the yard while mostly dreaming of scraps. A mule brays with theatrical misery because he knows full well you'll strap him to a plough as soon as your barley porridge hits your belly. Roman historians like Columella, who wrote the De Re Rustica, detailed every nuance of farm life, the endless sowing, weeding, pruning, and cursing at the weather gods when they ruined your harvest for fun. Scholars today find these old farm guides invaluable. You, however, would find them stating the obvious. Farm work is exhausting, backbreaking, and suspiciously designed to never, ever end. Your day starts, predictably, at dawn, which in your humble opinion is a cruel hour invented by sadistic roosters. You stir under your itchy wool blanket, scratch at the bite of flea thoughtfully left behind, and squint at the tiny window where dawn's first beams barge in uninvited. You roll out of bed and onto your feet, nearly tripping over your brother's outstretched arm. He decided to sleep on the floor again after losing a wrestling match with your other brother over who gets the comfy half of the straw mattress. Your tunica, made of homespun wool, is more patch than fabric at this point. Your mother insists it builds character. You cinch it with a rope belt that once doubled as a lead for the family goat, until the goat made it clear he'd rather chew it than wear it. For breakfast, you slurp down a wooden bowl of pools, a mushy barley porridge that has been the cornerstone of peasant diets since Rome was a baby village by the Tiber. You drizzle a stingy amount of olive oil over it. Rich folk pour theirs freely, but you treat yours like liquid gold because it practically is. Historical accounts show that Rome's rural poor survived mostly on grains, legumes, garden vegetables, and the occasional scrap of salted fish if you were lucky. If you caught a glimpse of wheat bread, you probably stared at it wistfully like a modern person gawking at a Michelin star steak they can't afford. While you eat, your mother paces and scolds you to hurry. She mutters a prayer to the household gods, the lares and penates, to bless your day and, more importantly, to convince your brother to lift a finger before noon. He grumbles, promises he'll do double tomorrow, and you all know that's about as true as a politician's vow to lower taxes. Once the sun climbs, you're already ankle-deep in the olive grove owned by the local landowner, Gaius Lucius Pontius Maximus Extraordinarius, a name longer than his patience for excuses. He's one of those minor nobles who loves to drop by unannounced, point at a tree and say, "Work harder," as if the tree itself would obey. Your job? Weed the grove, prune scraggly branches, check for olive flies, and try not to get bitten by the occasional snake hiding in the brush. Roman olive groves were the backbone of the empire's oil economy, so prized that ancient law protected olive trees from being cut without permission. Ruin a noble's olive tree, expect legal drama faster than you can say lawsuit. To keep your mind off your aching back, you gossip with your fellow peasants. Rumors swirl that Emperor Tiberius spends all day spying on people from behind curtains on Capri, which, if true, makes your goat seem mentally stable by comparison. At midday, you plop under a knotted fig tree for lunch, stale flatbread, crumbly goat cheese, and a jug of posca, sour wine diluted with water and vinegar. It's terrible, but cheap, and at least it kills most of the germs you can't see. Someone brags about seeing a travelling merchant with a chariot so shiny it blinded 3 chickens and made a mule faint. Another brags that he once helped a legionary fix his armour, which means he probably just held a hammer and got yelled at for an hour. Even here, history breathes. Records show Rome's rural poor were legally free, but economically chained to endless work. They rented land from wealthy landowners, paid taxes in grain, and offered labour in exchange for tiny plots to grow their own cabbages. It was a treadmill that made sure you'd die as tired as you were born. By late afternoon, the day's entertainment arrives. Near the village well, 2 women, both seasoned veterans of village drama, erupt in a spectacular row over a missing sack of barley. Each insists the other's goat broke into her storehouse and nibbled her winter supply. Soon, the entire village gathers like moths to gossip flame. Children cling to mothers' skirts. Men pretend to separate the two, but secretly place bets on whether today's argument will end with a bucket thrown. Historically, such disputes were usually handled by local elders or petty village courts. You, however, know that no elder alive wants to risk these 2 women's wrath. So the unofficial judge, old Marcus One-Tooth, settles it by declaring both goats guilty and demanding a peace offering of fresh cheese for his trouble. Satisfied, everyone returns to work, whispering fresh gossip. One says he saw a tax collector snooping near the village. Another swears the governor's nephew was spotted flirting with the baker's daughter. Scandalous. You nod along, savouring every morsel of rumour like it's honeyed wine. At last, the sun bows out behind the olive groves, painting the sky with streaks of gold and rose. The cicadas soften their shrill chorus, replaced by the distant bleat of sheep being herded back to their pens. Inside your hut, supper bubbles over the hearth. Lentil stew flavoured with onions and a suspiciously small pinch of garum, Rome's notorious fermented fish sauce. Romans adored garum so much they built entire factories for it. Modern tourists sniff its ancient remnants and swear vengeance upon their tour guides. Your family gathers cross-legged on the floor. You tear bread, dip it into the steaming pot, and listen to your mother hum a song older than the Republic itself. Your brother snores gently beside you. He accidentally fell asleep before helping clean up, as usual. Outside, the stars wheel overhead, the same constellations that Roman farmers once read like a seasonal clock, planting barley when Virgo rose and harvesting when Taurus faded. Tonight, you trace those ancient shapes through a smoky window, letting your eyelids droop as dreams tug at your mind. Tomorrow, you'll wake to the same rooster's scream, the same chores, the same laughter and grumbling. But tonight, you are warm, full, and loved. And not even Emperor Tiberius with his spies and scandals could ask for more. Sleep well, humble peasant. May your goats behave, your grain stores stay safe, and your neighbour's gossip remain deliciously inaccurate. Let's wander together into a raucous Roman festival under a moonlit sky. It's late summer in your modest village, a humble cluster of stone huts tucked among rolling olive groves. The harvest is nearly done, the barley's stacked, the grapes are ripening, and the elders have decided that the people deserve a celebration before winter's bite returns. Wooden tables appear as if by magic, draped with rough linen and piled high with bread loaves still warm from clay ovens. There are bowls of lentil stew, clusters of figs dripping with sweetness, wedges of goat cheese so pungent that even the mangiest village hound keeps a polite distance. Torches flicker in the evening breeze. Children, sticky with honey cakes, chase each other around the fire pit, while the village fiddler, who insists he once played for a centurion's wedding, scrapes out a tune that drifts lazily over the laughter. Here's a historical nugget. Rural Roman festivals were rooted in ancient pagan traditions and often merged with official Roman holidays like Saturnalia or the Consualia, a harvest festival to honour Consus, god of grain storage. Villagers used these nights to thank the gods, gossip, dance, and occasionally start petty feuds over who owed whom a chicken. As the night deepens, you find yourself sandwiched between your gossipy aunt and a neighbour who insists on refilling your cup every time you blink. They bicker about whether last year's festival ended with someone falling into the communal well, or whether it was just the goat again. Accounts differ wildly, and you wisely nod along. Music picks up pace. Young lovers sneak away behind olive trees, certain they're discreet, except everyone sees them and will talk about it until next year's festival. Old men attempt to dance, their knees cracking like kindling, while the youths cheer them on. Between mouthfuls of roasted chickpeas and stolen gulps of your neighbour's stronger wine, you overhear tales of the world beyond the village. A distant cousin who claims to have seen the emperor's chariot on a dusty road, a merchant's rumour that pirates trouble the seas, and the usual debate over which local family is hoarding the fattest pig. Your stomach aches from laughter, or maybe from too many figs, probably both. At one point, the village matchmaker corners you, wagging her finger at your unmarried status. She introduces you to her niece, who rolls her eyes so hard they nearly lodge behind her skull. The village drunk attempts a serenade, missing half the words, but doubling the volume. A wager begins. Who can balance an amphora on their head the longest while dancing? Naturally, you're roped in. You last 3 seconds, a new village record for shortest attempt. Applause erupts anyway. Amid the revelry, old Lucilla swears she sees an omen in the fire's crackle, that next year's harvest will be bountiful, but someone will lose a sandal to a mischievous household spirit. Everyone nods solemnly, then laughs until they wheeze. Romans were deeply superstitious, rural folk especially. Omens were read in the behaviour of animals, flickers of flame, or the cries of nightbirds. Of course, tonight, the only omen you care about is whether there's any honey cake left for a midnight snack. As the fire burns low, bodies slump on hay bales and borrowed cloaks. Snores echo beside muffled giggles from couples hiding in shadows. Somewhere, a lonely flute wheezes out its last squeaky tune. You lie back on the grassy earth, your belly full, your limbs heavy. The stars wink overhead as if congratulating your dancing, or perhaps mocking it gently. The distant hoot of an owl lulls you further toward dreamland. Tonight, there are no taxes, no weeds, no bickering goats. Only the soft, fleeting warmth of village laughter and the promise that, come dawn, you'll awake with a sore head but a happy heart. Sleep well, sweet Roman peasant. Tomorrow the fields await. But tonight you belong to the festival's embrace. Let your mind wander as you step into the chaotic charm of an ancient Roman marketplace. The sun climbs higher, casting long shadows over rows of stalls lined with vibrant cloth canopies, fluttering in the warm breeze. The air is thick with mingled scents, fresh bread baking, pungent fish drying on racks, fragrant herbs, and the unmistakable tang of livestock. You hear the loud calls of vendors advertising their wares: olives, figs, fresh garum sauce made from the freshest fish, while children weave between legs, chasing each other and begging for nuts. A slave hurries past, balancing a stack of pottery so tall it looks like it might topple with the slightest sneeze. You clutch your small bag of coins tightly, aware that every sestertius is precious. Your heart flutters with excitement and nerves. After all, town markets are where deals are struck, rumours spread, and fortunes can be made or lost with a single misstep. Roman markets, or forae, were lively centres of commerce, socialising, and politics. Even peasants made the trip into town to sell their crops or buy necessities not found at home. The market was also a place to hear news from the empire's vast borders, carried by travelling merchants and soldiers. You start at the vegetable stall, eyeing ripe cabbage heads and onions that might keep away more than just hunger. Maybe even those pesky spirits your grandmother warned you about. You barter with the gruff vendor, who tries to convince you that his lettuce is fresher than the morning dew itself. You counter with a story about your last harvest's stubborn weeds, and after much grumbling, he drops the price. Victory! Moving on, you spy a woman selling bright scarves woven from fine Egyptian linen. You admire the colours, but know such luxuries are far beyond your purse. Instead, you pick up a small jar of honey, sweet enough to remind you of the village festival, and a rare treat to take home. As you pass the fishmonger's stall, the pungent aroma nearly makes you lose your breakfast, but the sight of fresh fish glistening on ice reminds you that protein will be on the table tonight, if your wallet agrees. Nearby, a young boy loudly claims he once saw a gladiator in town, flexing his muscles as proof, while an elderly man rolls his eyes and tells a story about an escaped lion from the Colosseum. All the while, you dodge carts, greet acquaintances, and resist the tempting calls of the wine seller, who swears his vintage will make your worries vanish, or at least make you forget them for a few hours. The highlight arrives when a crafty merchant tries to sell you a genuine piece of Egyptian glass, sparkling like captured sunlight in his palm. You squint, suspecting it's just coloured resin, but he spins a tale so convincing that for a moment you imagine yourself as a wealthy Roman senator's guest. You attempt to haggle, only to have him respond with a joke. Why did the Roman refuse to pay full price? Because he didn't want to be a Caesar salad, always tossed. You laugh despite yourself, and the crowd around you chuckles too, breaking the tension. Nearby, a fellow peasant accidentally knocks over a basket of figs, causing a cascade of purple fruit to spill like a sweet waterfall onto the dusty street. The vendor's face turns red as he tries to stay stern, but soon everyone is laughing at the slippery chaos. You join a circle of villagers swapping news, reports of unrest in Gaul, a new edict from the Senate, and the latest gossip about the town's mayor's daughter who supposedly ran off with a baker. You lean in, soaking it all up, feeling connected to a world far larger than your humble farm. The Roman Empire's vast network of roads, meant that goods and stories flowed faster than you might expect. Merchants from Spain, Egypt, and even Britain passed through the markets, carrying not only spices and silk, but news of battles, political intrigue, and strange customs. Your small village might feel worlds away, but here, in the bustling marketplace, you are at the crossroads of an empire stretching from desert sands to misty highlands. It's easy to believe that, with enough luck and a little charm, one day your name might be whispered in the same breath as emperors and generals. As the sun dips lower, shadows grow long, and the market begins to quiet. Stalls close, goods are packed away, and tired vendors count their earnings with hopeful smiles. You gather your modest purchases and start the slow walk back home, the weight of your sack a comforting reminder of the day's work. The warm glow of the setting sun paints the rooftops golden as you imagine the hearty meal to come. Fresh vegetables, fish grilled over coals, and a drizzle of that precious honey. Your footsteps slow, the chatter of the market fades, and your thoughts grow soft as sleep beckons. You dream of roads stretching far beyond your village, of bustling cities, and the endless stories waiting just beyond the horizon. Rest now, traveller. Tomorrow the fields will call again, but tonight you carry the taste and tales of the Roman market in your heart. Picture this: the sun just beginning to paint the sky with soft pinks and golds, a gentle breeze carrying the fresh scent of river water and wild herbs. Your feet are damp with morning dew as you step down the muddy bank of the mighty Tiber, the lifeblood of Rome itself flowing steadily beside you. Today, you're no longer just a peasant buried in fields. You're part of a world where water means life, trade, and stories carried from faraway lands. You'll haul nets, watch boats bob like oversized wooden ducks, and feel the pulse of the empire as it hums quietly beneath the rippling surface. So lean back, breathe in that crisp river air, and let's drift together into the rhythm of a day lived by the Tiber. The riverbank is alive with activity. Reeds rustle softly, fishermen untangle nets, thick with the night's catch, and ducks paddle in lazy circles, quacking their own morning greetings. Nearby, children splash and laugh, trying to catch fish with their bare hands, a hopeless but joyful task. The smell of wet earth mixes with the salty tang of the river, while the distant calls of bargemen negotiating loads drift over the water. You hear the creak of wooden hulls, the slap of oars, and the faint echo of a flute played by a boatman trying to make the early hours less dreary. Your hands are rough from years of hauling nets and mending traps, but today there's a thrill, the promise of a bountiful catch, and maybe a story or two from passing traders who stopped to rest on the riverbank. Historical nugget: the Tiber River was central to Rome's growth, serving as a vital trade route. Peasants living near the river often fished to supplement their diets and traded goods with passing boats. Ancient Roman fishermen used various nets and traps, some designs dating back centuries. Your day begins before dawn, pulling yourself from a simple straw mattress in your humble hut near the water. You grab your fishing spear and worn nets, already sticky with last night's attempts, and wade into the chilly river. The current tugs gently but firmly at your legs as you cast nets wide, hoping to snare mullet, eel, or the prized lamprey. The work is tiring, arms ache, and your back protests louder than the neighbour's rooster, but the reward is worth it. Along the bank, traders from distant provinces unload amphorae filled with olive oil, wine, and honey. You barter a few fish for a jug of watered-down wine, trading news about the city's latest construction projects and the rumours of gladiatorial games that have everyone buzzing. At midday, you sit on a rock, eating hard bread dipped in olive oil and salted fish, watching boats sail downstream, carrying goods from Gaul, Hispania, and even the mysterious lands across the sea. A fellow fisherman tells a tale of a huge catfish the size of a cartwheel that nearly pulled him under. Probably exaggerated, but the image of you wrestling with a river monster makes everyone laugh. A young boy tries to impress the village girls by showing off his fishing skills, which mostly involve falling face first into the river. You offer him a wink and a jest. Careful, or you'll be dinner for that giant catfish yet. Later, as the sun sets, you gather around a small fire with neighbours, swapping exaggerated stories of heroic catches and near drownings. One elder claims that the river spirits sometimes play tricks on fishermen, hiding their nets or tangling lines just to keep life interesting. Historical wink. Romans believed rivers had spirits, or genii, that needed respect. Offerings of small coins or bread were sometimes tossed into waters to appease these guardians. Kind of like saying, "Hey, thanks for not eating me today." As stars twinkle overhead, you wrap a woolen cloak around your shoulders, the river's gentle murmur soothing your tired muscles. Your hut waits, filled with the comforting smell of drying fish and wood smoke. You think about the day's work, hard, unpredictable, but tied to the very heart of Rome's life. Tomorrow you'll rise again with the dawn, nets in hand, ready to dance with the river's secrets. But for now, rest cradles you like a calm current. Close your eyes, feel the river's pulse slow, and drift into dreams where the Tiber carries you gently into the night. Picture yourself waking just before the first soft blush of dawn, the cool morning air brushing against your skin as the village slowly stirs awake. Today, you are not just anyone. You are a Roman peasant woman, the heart and hands of your family's survival, balancing chores, children, and the occasional small rebellion against the whims of fate. From the smell of fresh bread baking in the communal oven to the steady rhythm of pounding grain, your day is a whirlwind of duty and quiet strength. So, settle in as I guide you through the sights, sounds, and surprises of a day shaped by sweat, laughter, and maybe a pinch of cheeky humour. Because even in the past, life had its little jokes. Your day begins in a modest, earth-walled hut, the walls faintly warmed by the embers of last night's fire. The aroma of wood smoke mingles with the sharp scent of herbs drying overhead. Outside, roosters crow their morning anthem, and the village slowly bursts into life. Men heading to the fields, children scampering barefoot over dusty paths, and neighbours greeting each other with nods and murmured hellos. You hear the soft clatter of clay pots and the faint murmur of women gathering at the well, exchanging news and advice like an ancient group text, only with more hand gestures and less typing. The sky is still a pale blue, promising another warm day in the Italian countryside, with just enough chill to remind you to pull your shawl a little tighter. Roman peasant women worked tirelessly, managing households, tending gardens, preparing food, and often assisting in the fields. Their role was essential, though seldom celebrated in grand histories. Most lived simply, yet their daily labour kept the empire's backbone strong. Your morning chore list is a marathon, fetching water from the well, careful not to spill any or risk being called clumsy all day, grinding grain into flour with a heavy stone quern, and preparing a simple breakfast of porridge or bread. You tend a small garden patch, beans, onions, and a few herbs, grumbling good-naturedly about the persistent goats that have a knack for sneaking in and nibbling everything, no matter how firmly you shoo them away. They've got a better diet than the mayor's cat, you joke to yourself, earning a chuckle from a passing neighbour. By midday, the communal oven beckons. You carry your dough on a wooden peel, placing it into the hot fire pit, praying it doesn't burn, because a burnt loaf is about as welcome as a tax collector at a feast. Between chores, you share stories with other women, who just yesterday caught wind of a new law increasing grain taxes, sparking worry, and a few clever ideas on how to stretch rations. You laugh softly at a witty innuendo about tightening belts that could mean more than just diet. At one point, your youngest child tugs at your skirt, insisting on helping carry water, a task that quickly turns into a splashing contest with the neighbour's children. You smile indulgently, knowing these little moments will become the stories told around firesides for years to come. Later, a burly farmhand offers an awkward compliment, muttering something about how hard work has shaped you better than any statue. You roll your eyes but appreciate the attempt. After all, even peasants deserve a little flattery now and then. When your husband returns from the fields, tired and dusty, you greet him with a wry joke. If you worked any harder, I'd start charging admission. It earns a tired laugh, easing the day's weariness. Roman peasant women rarely had luxuries, but they often shared strong social bonds. Festivals and communal gatherings were prized occasions to relax and enjoy a bit of levity amidst hardship. As twilight deepens, you sit by the hearth, the flickering flames casting soft shadows on the walls. The day's work is done, and the house is filled with the comforting smells of stew and freshly baked bread. You listen to the distant song of a shepherd's flute mingling with the quiet murmur of your family settling down to rest. Your eyes grow heavy, thoughts drifting to hopes for a good harvest and brighter days ahead. And perhaps a future where your children might dream bigger than you ever dared. Now, let the calm of the night wrap around you like a gentle shawl. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and rest, knowing that your strength keeps the empire turning, one small day at a time. Imagine waking up early, the sun just peeking over the horizon, painting the dusty streets of your village with soft gold. Today is market day, a day full of excitement, bartering, and the unmistakable smell of fresh bread, mingled with the less charming aroma of, well, let's just say the market isn't all roses and perfumes. You clutch your small basket tight, ready to swap goods, trade news, and maybe sneak a treat if the shopkeeper's not looking. The market is the heartbeat of the community, where peasants, traders, and nobles rub elbows, and every coin spent tells a story. So, settle in, and let me take you on a stroll through the colourful chaos of a Roman market day, where every shout and barter paints a lively picture of life as a peasant. The market square buzzes with activity, vendors calling out their wares in rhythmic chants, the clatter of wooden carts rolling over cobblestones, and the mixed scents of fresh fruit, cured meats, and pungent cheeses blending into a wild symphony of aromas. Children dart between stalls, chasing after stray chickens, while goats nibble on scraps near a stack of barrels. The air is thick with dust and the occasional waft of something less pleasant, like the smell of the local pig's pen, which is never far from the action. You see farmers unloading baskets heavy with olives, grain sacks bulging with the season's harvest, and cloth merchants displaying bright bolts of wool dyed in rich reds and blues, colours that speak of far-off lands and skilled hands. Markets were essential social and economic hubs in Roman villages. Peasants sold surplus produce, bartered goods, and caught up on gossip. Market days often coincided with religious festivals, making them lively community events. Your first stop is the vegetable stall, where you haggle over a few onions and some cabbages. You flash your best smile, hoping to get a discount, while secretly wondering if you're the only one who knows how to stretch a coin like it's elastic. Next, you pass the bakery, eyeing the warm loaves that fill the air with irresistible aroma. You remember the last time you tried to sneak an extra piece. Let's just say the baker's glare was sharp enough to slice bread. As you weave through the crowd, you exchange greetings with familiar faces. The blacksmith wiping soot from his hands, the potter with a new jug decorated in bright paint, and the town crier who's just finished shouting the latest edict from the magistrate. You overhear whispers of the upcoming gladiator games, talk of fierce battles, roaring crowds, and enough drama to rival the best soap operas. You chuckle softly, imagining a gladiator getting tripped up by his own sandals. Hey, even heroes have off days. At one stall, A merchant tries to sell miracle herbs, promising everything from better sleep to a more charming smile. You exchange a knowing glance with a nearby friend and joke that the only thing these herbs will cure is an empty purse. A street performer juggles apples, dropping one right into a laughing child's lap. A perfect, unplanned gift that sends the crowd into delighted applause. You chat with a fellow peasant who proudly boasts about the enormous turnip he grew this year, joking that it's so big it could hide a whole family of mice. Or maybe even the mayor, if he ever wanted to go incognito. Roman markets were often lively, noisy places full of character. Vendors used humour and showmanship to attract customers, and peasants were skilled bargainers who knew the value of every coin. As the sun sinks low, casting long shadows over the emptying market square, you gather your purchases and make your way home. The chatter fades, stalls close, and the village settles into a quiet evening. You think about the day, the deals made, the stories shared, and the small joys found in the hustle and bustle. Your basket may be light, but your heart feels full with connection to your community and the rhythm of village life. Now let the gentle calm of the evening wash over you. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and drift into restful sleep, knowing you've lived another day woven into the rich tapestry of Rome's past. Imagine the early morning sun casting long shadows over rolling fields, dew still clinging to the blades of grain that sway gently in the breeze. Today, you are a Roman peasant farmer, a tireless steward of the earth, rising before the birds to coax life from stubborn soil with nothing but your hands, a wooden plough, and a heart full of hope. Your day will be filled with toil, weathered tools, and moments where you swear the gods themselves are testing your patience, but also with small victories, laughter, and a deep connection to the land that sustains Rome. So, breathe in the fresh country air, and let me guide you through a day where sweat, soil, and spirit combine in the ancient rhythm of farming. The village is still quiet when you step out. The only sounds the soft crowing of a distant rooster and the occasional bark of a farm dog greeting the dawn. The smell of damp earth rises with the morning mist, rich and alive, promising both challenge and reward. Fields stretch out before you, patches of wheat, barley, and vegetables glowing gold under the soft sunlight. The wooden handles of your tools feel familiar and worn in your hands, like old friends who've seen every season's battle alongside you. Birds flit overhead, their songs mingling with the rhythmic clink of the plough cutting into the earth. Somewhere nearby, oxen low patiently, waiting to haul the cart loaded with harvest. Roman peasants often worked small plots of land, growing grains like wheat and barley, staples that fed not only families, but also the city's vast population. Farming was grueling, but central to the empire's survival. Your day begins with the backbreaking but vital task of tilling the soil. The plough bites into the ground, turning earth that smells like promise and sweat. You guide the oxen steadily, muscles burning, as you prepare the land for sowing seeds that will become next season's bread. At midday, you pause under the shade of a gnarled olive tree, wiping your brow and nibbling on a simple meal of hard bread and cheese. You watch as your children chase after chickens, their laughter a bright contrast to the heavy work. Later, you tend to irrigation channels, carefully diverting water to thirsty crops. A skill passed down from ancestors who knew that water was worth more than gold. Sometimes a careless neighbour's goat escapes and tramples a patch, leading to a good-natured scolding mixed with a chuckle. Farming has its dramas after all. Roman farmers relied heavily on the seasons and celestial signs to guide planting and harvesting. The goddess Ceres was honoured as the protector of grain and agriculture, with festivals held to ensure a good harvest. Your neighbour jokes that you work harder than a senator chasing votes, a sly nod to the fact that peasants did the real, heavy lifting behind Rome's grandeur. You laugh and throw back that at least your back hurts for bread, not speeches. When a stubborn mule refuses to move, you wrestle it with the patience of a philosopher, or at least with the stubbornness of one who knows the plough must move no matter what. You imagine the mule is secretly plotting its escape, the ultimate prank. As dusk falls, you share stories by the fire with fellow farmers, exchanging tips, tales of past harvests, and a few exaggerated claims about the size of the one that got away, whether fish or giant turnips. As twilight deepens, you stand looking out over fields now shadowed and still, the hard work of the day settling into peaceful calm. The stars begin to twinkle, silent witnesses to centuries of toil beneath their watchful gaze. You feel the ache in your limbs, but also a quiet pride, knowing that every seed sown and every furrow ploughed feeds more than just your family. It feeds an empire. Now, let the cool night air wrap around you like a soft blanket. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and drift into a restful sleep filled with dreams of fertile fields and bountiful harvests.